It's Friday, the 26th of August, 2022. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, we have 5 really big stories to get through this morning, so we better jump into it. Story number 1 is all about Qantas. The airline is going to buy back $400 million worth of shares, signalling its confidence in the future and declaring the restoration of its financial strength. This is as revenue rose 53% to $9.1 billion for the last financial year.
Yes, but the airline still lost $860 million, which brings its COVID losses to a staggering $7 billion. In fact, it's remarkable Qantas is around at all, having gone through that. Chief Executive Officer Alan Joyce says $25 billion in revenue went missing through the pandemic, and things still haven't fully returned to normal. Domestic capacity is back to 100%, but international is still only at 63% of pre-COVID levels. Needless to say, no dividend was declared, but shareholders were buoyed by a $400 million share buyback, and the airline share price jumped 7%. Now, that $400 million, put that in perspective, Qantas raised $1.4 billion from shareholders at the start of the pandemic. What was interesting was Alan Joyce's comment about financial strength. Certainly the buyback suggests that. Also, debt's under control. It now has lower debt than in the global financial crisis. And Mr. Joyce has been stripping costs out through the pandemic. Plane purchases have been deferred. The old 747s have been mothballed mostly, and nearly 10,000 employees have been let go. He does know there's work to be done. He said that on any given day, more than 300 pilots could be on sick leave or isolating. He knows that has to improve, hence the $50 flight vouchers they've been handing out earlier this week and the lounge invitations. Anyway, good news for Qantas.
Yeah, sure is. Story number 2, Sean, there is plenty happening in federal politics at the moment. We'll start with the agenda for next week's Jobs and Skills Summit has been announced.
Yes, keeping people in jobs really is top of the agenda. Wages are also going to be a topic of debate, as are fixing skills shortages, likely through lifting migration. In fact, migration will be the main topic on day 2 of the summit, and it looks like the government wants unions and businesses to agree that lifting the intake is in both their interests. The government also wants to increase the required pay level that temporary immigrant employees must receive to be awarded a visa to migrate. In theory, that should encourage more skilled migrants. And just quickly, Michael, before we leave the government, it announced a royal commission into the robo-debt crisis that occurred under the Morrison government. That scheme was ruled unlawful by the federal court in 2019, but not before it recovered $750 million from nearly 400,000 people, mostly low-income people.
Okay, story number 3, Sean. It's obviously reporting season at the moment, so we're hearing a lot of companies reporting their results. There seems to be a bit of a common theme here of the mining companies are doing well.
Yes, Michael. South32 was one that reported yesterday. It posted a net profit after tax of $2.7 billion US dollars. That's a record. Interesting little tidbit in that one. South32 was spun out of BHP, and it's named for the Southern Hemisphere latitude linking its mines in Australia, South Africa and South America. There you go. Another one really enjoying its time in the sun at the moment is Whitehaven Coal. It announced a $2 billion profit for the last financial year. That's 5 times more than the previous year. Obviously, Whitehaven is benefiting from higher thermal and metallurgical coal prices.
Okay, story number 4, nuclear power, Sean, is back in the news. In Japan, at least, but it actually has some pretty significant repercussions for Australia.
Yeah, Japan has been turning off nuclear reactors ever since the Fukushima disaster in 2011. But in the face of rising energy costs for coal and gas and the need to cut carbon emissions, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has proposed developing a new series of smaller reactors and restarting the mothballed ones they already have. Germany's thinking about the same thing. It's trying to work out how to reverse its anti-nuclear stance. Many see nuclear power as the only way to get to net zero carbon emissions. What's that mean locally? Great for the uranium miners. The prospect of Japan's restarting nuclear power fueled a rally in the ASX's uranium stocks yesterday. Paladin was up 12%. Energy Resources Australia jumped 6%. Deep Yellow, great name, rose 18%. And Benjamin Energy jumped 16%.
All right, story number 5, Sean, last one. How about this one out of the US? California is looking to ban petrol cars.
Yes, not unlike our own ACT. California is going to vote next week on banning the sale of new internal combustion engine cars by 2035. It's a big step, not just because California is the largest economy in the US, but because other states tend to follow its lead.
Yeah, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 25th of August, 2022. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't enough for you, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.